Yes.
Barack Obama is back in the spotlight, the former president taking to the campaign trail in Illinois to sound off on his successor, and President Trump wasted no time firing back.
You need to vote because our democracy depends on it.
Isn't this much more exciting than listening to President Obama?
The stakes really are higher. The consequences of any of us sitting on the sidelines are more dire.
I watched it, but I fell asleep. I found he's very good for sleeping.
It did not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause.
Joining me now, Democratic strategist who worked on Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, Elena Beverly, and Mattie Duppler, president of Forward Strategies and former coalitions director for the House Republican Conference. I don't know, I took away the fact that the president takes naps, I guess, during the day, but we're going to get right into it here, Elena. These are the most pointed words that we've heard from your former boss since the president took office, this meaning President Trump, of course, even mentioning him by name. I'm curious your reaction to what you saw yesterday. Did you expect Barack Obama to go after Donald Trump so specifically?
I think what we saw yesterday was President Obama at his best, doing what he does best, which is defending democracy. And in fact, if democracy had a superhero, his name would be Barack Obama, and his superpower would be convincing all of us as voters that our votes matter, our voices matter in this grand experiment that is American democracy. I think that he felt the need to come out and defend what is best about America and to remind us of who we are, to remind us that we are better than the politics of anxiety and hatred and division that is being peddled by Donald Trump and the Republican Party.
Yep, and you look, Mattie, President Obama took a look at the tone of all this, how peculiar it is for a former president to speak out the way he did. Let's take a listen to what he said there.
The truth was, I was also intent on following a wise American tradition of ex-presidents gracefully exiting the political stage. I'm here today because this is one of those pivotal moments.
Big picture here. Was President Obama wrong to make that speech? Should he have stuck to that tradition?
I don't think it was a question of whether President Obama was going to weigh in on the electoral process. I think it was a question of when. Now, I think it's interesting that Obama has decided to weigh in 6 weeks before the midterms, because the big question for Republicans has been, what do midterms look like for Republicans when there's a Republican in the White House, particularly when that Republican is Donald J. Trump? Now, we know over the course of President Obama's presidency exactly how Republicans run against Obama, and it's pretty well. Over the course of Obama's presidency, of course, Democrats are now at their lowest strength in about a century, and the Republicans in Washington in particular are very adroit at running against the Obama record. So for the president now to come out and start reestablishing his role on the national stage, I think it's a good question. Who does that benefit? Republicans certainly have demonstrated that they can run against the Obama record, and for President Obama now to continue to litigate that record, I don't think it helps Democrats, particularly moderate Democrats, who are struggling with portraying a vision for voters in the midterms.
So, Elena, the president had strong, meaning President Obama, had strong words about the GOP. Take a listen to that.
The politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party.
When you hear President Obama throwing pretty direct partisan punches like this, does any part of this make you think, this could be bad for Democrats in the midterms, or does it only fire them up?
I think this fires them up, but more importantly, or just as importantly, it also fires up the independents and those moderate Republicans who don't see themselves, those suburban women who don't see themselves in the politics of division that the Republicans have been spewing through their rhetoric. So he's speaking not just to the Democratic base, but he's also speaking out to those disaffected voters, those who either didn't show up in 2016 or those who may have taken a chance on Trump and now are reminded that this is not what they stand for. year. So I think that he's actually expanding the base, and he's also the MVP for the Democrats, who are leaving nothing for granted and leaving nothing on the field this go-round. We've seen unprecedented voter turnout in the primaries, 78% higher than we saw in 2014. So I actually think that we are poised to make this a very good year for the Democrats.
Something interesting here. President Obama, using numerical facts, suggested that he should get some of the credit for the current state of the economy, how strong it is, and then President Trump responded to that. Let's take a listen.
I think he was trying to take some credit. He was trying to take credit for this incredible thing that's happening to our country. If the Democrats got in with their agenda in November of almost 2 years ago, instead of having 4.2 up, I believe honestly you'd have 4.2 down.
So, Mattie, if the president's goal is for Republicans to retain control of the House and the Senate, is talking about Barack Obama on the campaign trail, is that just a waste of time?
Well, you know, I think it's a good question, because Republicans, what they have demonstrated with their strength in the 2016 election is that Americans vote not just with their checkbook, but with how they feel about their checkbook. You know, President Obama, if he wants to claim victory in this economy, Americans didn't respond to that, both in the midterms in 2014 and then again in 2016. They responded to the message that President Trump portrayed as to what he would do to lead the country out of the recession. And so Democrats need to be wary of that. You know, I think it's an interesting question about whether or not President Obama actually does galvanize large swaths of the Democratic base. Under President Obama, we know that the Democratic Party got more liberal, so that while that might be very enchanting for Democrats who already like Obama, who are already going to show up to vote in 2018 because they are already energized, I'm not sure that does translate to the Democrats who stayed home. And ultimately, that really is the question for both Republicans and Democrats. Do their bases turn out in the midterms?
That is the big question indeed. Mattie Duppler, Elena Beverly, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In just a few minutes, Stormy Daniels' attorney Michael Avenatti will be here with me just days before his client is set to appear in court.